We are back. We are back. Thank you guys. Thank you all so much for joining us again on TikTok. We do post the lives on Rumble and YouTube, so you can always check these out. You can go, you can comment. Anything that I miss, maybe if you're on TikTok, you can always comment right here. We'll respond in real time. But even after the fact, I like to bring up these conversations in the comment sections. So anytime people are commenting on TikTok or commenting on the long form podcast, these subjects come up again and again. We're all part of a community here, so it's all just part of the show. So please share your thoughts. Don't be a stranger. We're all here to learn and grow together. We want to learn, to debate, and work through our ideas together as a team. You only make me stronger. So we're going to start off the show with the top line, the 5 stages of grief. This is a fun one, right? Because it all started when Virginia Democrats began this redistricting effort. They wanted to push this thing through in Virginia, and there were all the warning signs were there. If you follow Nick Freitas, he's a Virginia senator, so not in the national sense. He's a state senator, I should say, but he is kind of now a voice in the conservative movement generally, even nationally. He gets a lot of recognition. But he pointed out, even back in October, back in November, that this was unconstitutional, that this would never go through. He began making this case that we're seeing in the Virginia Supreme Court now. He was making this case on his social media months ago. So really, if you know ball, if you really pay attention to Virginia politics, none of what's happening right now is even remotely surprising. But because this was so well forecasted, because this conclusion was so obvious, we are now seeing the Democrats go through the 5 stages of grief now that it's becoming very clear that frankly, redistricting in Virginia is not happening. The Virginia Supreme Court is not going to approve it. Already, insiders within the party, staffers, analysts, pollsters, they're all saying less than 50% chance that SCOVA allows this to go through. And even a month ago, Washington Post, when we first saw the polls that were saying that the yes vote was struggling, I mean, we were still in the early voting stages, and Washington Post was running articles saying that it was really Spanberger was a little too cavalier. She was a little too progressive in her first 100 days, and that was going to sink the no vote. New York Times ran basically the exact same article. And now we had all these national Democrats dogpiling. Hakeem Jeffries and his super PAC puts up $40 million for redistricting in Virginia. We see other national Democrat groups in New York and D.C. dump another $40 million on top of that. The war chest for the Democrats, between that and then small dollar donations within the state, it was nearly $90 million that they have spent before the election and trying to drive the vote, and now in legal fees after the election, and realizing that they're not going to be able to slam this through. And now we have people in the Virginia Senate and in the Virginia Congress pointing fingers, trying to say who's to blame, because there were a lot of warning signs. There were a lot of warning signs that this did not follow the Virginia Constitution, that this was going to be challenged. And you'll see Republicans didn't spend like hardly any money. Republicans, they had a much smaller war chest. I think they only raised like $28 million before the vote. But even in trying to drive the vote, it wasn't even national Republican groups. It was like Let's Vote Virginia. They spent like 10 or 15 million. National Republicans spent almost nothing in Virginia. They let Democrats waste all of this money, all of their political capital, pushing redistricting in a way that's kind of ugly, in a way that actually scares moderates. And they did all of this. They blew all of their financial capital and all of their political capital on this thing that's now going to fail. And Spanberger's not going to let this get pinned on her. To be fair, she wasn't even the governor when this started. All of this started in the halls of Virginia's Congress. And now she's the governor, and they're trying to say it was her fault. And these are just people in Virginia that are trying to keep their little spot so they can stay on the casino payroll, so they can stay on the data center payroll. And they're just trying to flame Abigail Spanberger. So just 3-4 months ago, this woman was actually saw a path where she could find herself in the Oval Office or next to it. Now they're trying to torch her political career, and she's barely gotten started. She's practically still a CIA agent. She's been in politics for such a short amount of time. And so we saw at first it was denial, right? The first stage, we saw denial. We saw as soon as the case was filed, my very first video about this case, you can check the comment section. All the Democrats that jump in and they say, yeah, it's not going to happen. Scove is going to approve it. They're never going to stop this. And this is important to remember because there's national Democrats that really, really want this. And specifically, not just national Democrats in a general sense. You can narrow down those national Democrats to one region, and it is that Arlington, Fairfax area. That's why there are 5 districts there. So we're actually rewind just a little bit because this didn't just come. Virginia redistricting did not just come out of the blue. This didn't just happen overnight. It happened for a reason. We had these Doge cuts. We had this audit. We were going through the federal government. We're going through all of this money that gets spent, that goes to all these different NGOs, all these groups, all these people that are on the rim of Washington. And all of them they're making so much money. They are getting so much taxpayer money. They are getting our money that we get taxed on. And they just get this money forever. There's like no way for them to lose it. They spend more money than anything else on just filing their grants, on making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and that money is coming in. They know they can count on it, and that's why they buy these giant mansions just outside of D.C., because they know that money's good forever. Then all of a sudden, the walls kind of start closing in. You see this thing happening throughout the country that, well, now we're auditing, we're stopping the fraud, we're going after this stuff, we're not going to let this happen anymore. And they have to pull back. They say, we got to get out of DC, not only, so we're in Virginia now. And a lot of these NGOs are in Northern Virginia. But more importantly, we need to control Virginia governance so that we can get things similar to like the Stop Nick Shirley Act that was going through California's Congress just a couple weeks ago. They need stuff like that in Virginia. They need to make sure that they can't be investigated, that they're protected, that all of the legal I's and T's, everything's dotted, everything's crossed. So even though it is a graft to get taxpayer dollars, they need to make sure that either they can't be investigated to prove that it's graft, or even though it's graft, it's technically legal graft. So they need to secure Virginia. They need to make this state a bastion for the deep state. And then they're just on the outside of Washington, so you don't have to worry about getting investigated. You don't have to worry about getting upended. So you put 5 out of the 10 districts, 5 of the 10 Democrat districts, you put them all through that one city, that one area, and then you know that you can control the rest of the state. You only need the vote from Richmond and the vote from Norfolk, and you're done. That's it. You're good. So if you do that, you can secure the state forever. And because of the pressure, the immense pressure from the leaders of the Democrat Party, from the leaders within the deep state of the permanent government, because of all that pressure, then that anger, that fear, that need to redistrict, all of that gets projected down onto the base. That's where the money goes. It's the advertising and the messaging and making sure that on social media, on TV, that all these people are hearing the same thing. We need the redistricting in Virginia. It's to stop Trump. It's very important. It's a power grab. If we don't stop it, nobody can. And so all that gets pushed down, and that's why you see even Democrat voters, as soon as you say, hey, trouble in paradise. This a Tazewell County judge has this referred to the Virginia Supreme Court. They denied the stay. They're upholding the injunction. It's not happening. They say, oh, no, it's happening. Denial, step 1. Step 2, anger. Why is this happening? Who's to blame? All of a sudden they lash out. Oh, well, it's just because of the, these people, they think, it's in the Constitution. We did it. They retroactively, we amended the Constitution retroactively. It's in there. They can't stop us. Who do these people think they are? And then comes the bargaining. Then comes the bargaining. Hey, well, maybe it's today, but we have other states and we can make this happen anywhere else. And who's to say what's going to happen? What's next? And they think that that's going to happen, but the thing about the stages of grief is that people think that it is a step 1, step 2, step 3. You see, when you talk to a counselor, when you talk to psychologists, when you talk to these people, a lot of the time, especially in people that are more troubled, people that have a higher anxiety, they're not going to necessarily experience these in neat little step 1, then step 2, then step 3. Sometimes people regress a little bit. So we see this bargaining right now where people are saying like, hey, maybe not this time, but maybe in 2028, or hey, what about what the Supreme Court ruled in Louisiana v. Calais? Doesn't that change things here? And they start trying to figure it out, right? Now, here's the thing. We're in kind of a dangerous space right now because as the plane shifts, as our footing becomes less secure, everything's so chaotic right now, we might just see a general depression, which, would be reflected probably in approval rating polls. We'd see the Democrat approval rating just crater within Virginia Senate. You'd see a sort of a moderation within Virginia politics, people kind of coming to terms with Abigail Spanberger wanting to tax things like gym memberships or Netflix subscriptions, and the fact that the cost of living just keeps going up and up and up, and she pretends to do these things where it's like one step forward and then 3 steps back over and over again. And maybe you just settle into that depression and then acceptance where people realize something has to change. And then you can get a real populist in control of Virginia. Screw Democrat, screw Republican. Who cares? Who cares what you call it? But no, there is a way that you can make it better if we all work together for a common goal, for the things that we actually want, the things that we need. That's possible. That's one possible solution. Or there's another solution, and I want you to ask yourself, do you think that this is more likely? Do you think it's more likely that after sinking $70 million into this redistricting campaign in Virginia, do you think it's more possible that they will then just turn the media absolutely just frothing rabid at the idea that this got overturned and that this is only going to just turn up the temperature even more? What do you think realistically? Do you think that this results in everybody realizing that nobody got what they paid for? Nobody is delivering the goods. Trump didn't deliver the goods for his base. Spanberger is not delivering the goods for her base. We can all agree on that and then just focus on the things that we actually have in common and then start setting about fixing those things. I have to point out, there is a trifecta in the Virginia government right now. Both chambers of Virginia Congress and the governor, all on the same page, supposedly. And they are not delivering the goods for their base. So, or the people who thought they were part of the base are now realizing they're on the outside, which is exactly the same thing for MAGA Republicans. If you thought you were getting mass deportations, if you thought that they were going to round them up, well, guess what? They have a trifecta. It ain't happening. And you can tell yourself all you want. At least if you're a Trump supporter, you can say, oh, well, they're blocking us and there's so many rhinos and this and that. Okay, well, if you're a Democrat in Virginia, what's your excuse? Okay? But even as a Republican, what happened to that energy from the first 90 days that they can just do stuff? What happened to that? Well, you can just do things. You remember the Gulf of America, like all that? Anybody remember that? No? Okay, well, regardless, there is an opportunity. We can get solid actual governance in Virginia. Maybe it's a Republican that isn't a vice president of a hedge fund. To me, that seems like a good place to start. Or maybe it's a Democrat that is, relatively moderate and just is willing to be reasonable about abortion. Maybe not up until the point of birth. Maybe maybe we dial that back to the first trimester. That's a place to start. And I know that some pro-lifers are not incrementalists. They say all or nothing. that won't make peace with evil or whatever. Like, you got to realize where you are right now. Like, we are there. They are doing post-birth abortion in Virginia right now. So do you think that maybe you could elect somebody who would say, listen, first trimester? Like, to me, that seems like a step in the right direction. You know? I'm 100% open to debate. I will go live with somebody on this issue. I'm very happy to do so. If anybody wants to organize that, you can DM me. That would be I think that would be a great opportunity. But yeah, right now in Virginia, we went from Governor Ralph Northam, post-birth abortions, to Glenn Youngkin, who did nothing, to now so nothing has changed. Since the Alex Jones clip to today, nothing's changed. So, you actually have the ability to change something. So do we think that we can actually get to that point? Or do you think probably another $50 million is going to get dumped in to a media blitz that says you should be angry that these people stopped the redistricting referendum? Which do you think is more likely? Because I'll tell you what, there was another guy basically right at the edge of the White House, just getting his life ruined for nothing other than a LARP. I did a video about this morning, right? We've been LARPing the revolution. We have been LARPing the revolution for a long, long time. And it's the same every day. And I need to be specific about this, right? Because you have this guy, and he's just hanging around the White House. He's got a concealed weapon on him. And they say, like, oh, plainclothes agents, they spotted the outline of the weapon. So they went to question him, and then he's tried to flee and started shooting, and then they shot back. And then now, thankfully, the agents weren't killed. The man wasn't killed. He did hit a 15-year-old bystander. 15-year-old bystander taken to the hospital. He's okay. The man was dispatched. He was taken to the hospital. He's alive, supposedly. He's in stable condition, supposedly. We still don't have a name on this guy. We don't know all the motivations. And we might never, right? If it's not convenient, they won't tell us. But there's a lot that you can assume about this. I hate to say that, but there is a lot that you can assume, because this didn't happen out of nowhere. Every day there's more online of people saying, like, oh man, if only that had been an inch to the right. Oh man, nuts, a close call. You hear these things all the time. And like, a lot of these people are just like insufferable and annoying. So I get that. Like, I get that most of these people are not actually a danger to anything other than the vibe. Like, you know what I mean? They're not going to kill anything other than the vibe. And that's okay. Like, you're allowed to be a bummer. It's not everybody's responsibility to be super fun socially. So I understand if maybe you're just like not that interesting. So you just say inflammatory things for fun. You're probably not mentally ill. Then you do have mentally ill people. People that hear this stuff and they genuinely believe it. Like, they're not going to do anything, but when they hear all of this stuff about, like, how this is exactly like Germany in the mid-30s. And, oh, this is exactly like when so-and-so took power. Like, they hear these things and they genuinely believe it. Like, they think that they are in a chapter of The Handmaid's Tale, and like any day they're going to march out with the freaking red gowns or whatever. There are people who genuinely believe it. They're still not a danger to anyone, but they are walking around with like high anxiety all the time. And those people, again, it's whatever. But all of this rhetoric does affect the people who are in actual danger. They are so mentally unhinged. They are so removed from reality that they see all this stuff and they say to themselves that they are going to make themselves a chapter in the history book. They think that they are going to do something that will make themselves a martyr. You can look at the little statements that we've gotten from Cole Allen so far, that they think that they are going to do something that will immortalize them forever. Same with Ryan Routh, the guy in Florida that was hiding at the golf club or whatever. He was hiding in the woods next to the seventh hole or whatever, trying to get a shot off at the president. These people all think that, hey, if I do this, then where then there's a certain number of people that will immortalize me. Or if you get captured alive, maybe a certain number of people will actually mobilize. They'll think that they have a chance. And all of this rhetoric is doing nothing. And that's all three categories are guilty of this. When you just constantly raise the temperature all the time, it just gets worse and worse. I see Zombie Tea Party. Yeah, that's the fear tactics. Exactly. They're trying to gin everybody up into insanity, and it's working. And it's everything. It's on one side, it's just these fear tactics and ginning up the rhetoric. On the other side, it's a nonstop demoralization campaign. And some people can't spot it. They just know that everything sucks and it gets worse and worse. But some people, you don't even have to be particularly intelligent to say, like, why is our public school system selecting for leaders in this way? Like that's a problem. And there's no way out of it. So like if you're just slightly smart, like if you're just barely above average, you can recognize the pattern and you're just like, dude, I might as well just give up. But you see this all the time, and it takes a lot of people to get on the same page to finally overcome this. But anyway, my point is this guy at the Washington Monument, he just threw his life away over just something absolutely stupid. And all of this, these cameras that they have in DC, they know. They're like, I said something about this to a friend of mine a long time ago. He was going to DC. He's reading all the news. He's like, well, I have it concealed. I'm just going to carry it. I'm like, dude, you are an idiot. Don't do that. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like, it's concealed. I'm like, dude, they know. Like, it doesn't matter if you're wearing a bulky jacket. Like, they can tell by the way that you walk. Like, they can tell by your gait that you're carrying a weapon. Unless you're carrying it off body, like in a backpack or something, they know. And even to that extent, like you are getting flagged. They have these cameras. They have a risk assessment of definitely clean, maybe carrying, definitely carrying. If you fall into either of those second or third categories, they are immediately running a background check on you. They are seeing what you look at on social media, what you post on social media. Have you flown recently? Where to? Who are you talking to? Any of those messages unencrypted? You have a criminal history? All of these things are being put together now, powered by AI. But they were able to do this 15 years ago. They started doing this in casinos throughout Las Vegas. 5 years ago, Target was talking about using this technology to enforce their ban on Second Amendment carrying in their premises. They know when you are walking around DC, when you hop on the metro, they know immediately. And talking about demoralization campaigns, they'll only enforce this on certain people. So no, that you're flagged, you're walking around the White House in this political climate. Yes, the agents are approaching you. It is happening. There's no avoiding it. And this LARP that has been going on, people think it's worth it because they keep seeing this rhetoric online, and there's nothing, no limiting principle, nothing that will stop them. Nothing that will stop anybody. It just keeps going, and it just gets worse and worse. No. So I don't even know what you do. I don't even know what you do to fix it. Do you just like censor that? Do you just say, you know what? Everybody loses their internet privileges. You need a license to be online, like a license to drive. These are the do's and don'ts. These are the signs. These are the warnings. You can get a ticket. Or I don't want to live in that America. This is America. That's not supposed to be how it is. And yet I don't know of any other way that they're going to fix it. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Total media control. You just keep publishing the crime statistics. Hey, all the terror attacks are coming from the left wing. Maybe these people shouldn't be allowed online. And then what happens? It just turns into it's just exactly what happened that got Trump elected. You just ban all the crazy right wingers from the internet so that the only ones left are like wearing a tie. They're like, well, he's actually really not that bad. And then, and then you get Donald Trump. It'll be the opposite. It'll be like that's how Bernie's going to win. They're going to have him like cryogenically frozen. They unfreeze him just in time for the election in 2036. No. So anyway, we can all fix this together. And of all things that we can do together, Spirit Airlines went bankrupt. We didn't bankrupt them. Elizabeth Warren did. No, that's kind of reductive. Spirit started struggling in 2018, and like things were going downhill. You know, they have like 1 million fees for everything. But did you know that last year, if it's freaking, yeah, right. No, so last year, right, Spirit was one of 3 airlines that had like, they had a near perfect record for on-time arrivals. They were almost never late. Spirit was always on time. Spirit Airlines had a perfect track record, entire history of the company, perfect track record on safety. You know how crazy that is? It's like the cheapest service available. They have like just running a clean sheet, on running a company on nothing but hyper efficiency. Add in extra fees. Hey, just have the ticket ready on your phone. If we have to print your ticket at the gate, we're charging you. Hey, you want to carry a carry-on? We're charging you for that because it takes up time loading and unloading. The Spirit was like 40% faster with loading and unloading a plane, getting passengers off and then back on again. These guys nailed it. Now they were already struggling. Yeah, exactly. Bankrupt over gas prices, not exactly. Spirit was already struggling as early as 2018. By 2023, they were considering a merger with struggling as early as 2018. By 2023, they were considering a merger with JetBlue. They were doing this because they were struggling. JetBlue is also considered a low-cost carrier, but JetBlue was kind of slightly above. You know, if Spirit Airlines is like the Geo Metro of cheap airfare, then like that would make JetBlue like the Nissan Sentra, right? Like it's not awful, but like, you know, it's still, you know, it's still an efficiency buy. They're talking about merging. You had like Elizabeth Warren comes out and she says, "Oh, well, you know, look at the routes that Spirit's doing. You know, whenever Spirit has a route, then JetBlue's fares, or they have to lower their fare on the same route by 15%. JetBlue just wants to buy Spirit so they can hike the fares. And if they merge with Spirit, they'll have 8% of the airline industry, which makes them a monopoly." You know how crazy that is? We're using monopoly laws to stop companies from having 8% ownership, and it takes 3 years to sue PVC manufacturers over price fixing. That's fucking crazy. That's totally unfair. That it takes half a decade. That's totally unfair. That it takes half a decade to sue rebar companies and concrete additive companies, actual monopolies, government protected monopolies. And we have for price fixing in those markets, it takes years. But you can just block a merger, a voluntary merger between Spirit and JetBlue, just apropos to, oh, they'll have 8% of the market. That's dangerous. It'll reduce options. The options got reduced anyway. Spirit filed for bankruptcy. As soon as that was blocked in 2024, they filed for bankruptcy like 3 months later. And then they filed for bankruptcy again. And so then as part of their bankruptcy agreement, I think in like December, January, they had this whole structured repayment plan. They were going to be good. They didn't anticipate a war spiking gas prices the way it did. And so they either had to restructure their bankruptcy or get a bailout from the U.S. government. So they tried to get a bailout from the government for $2.5 billion. The government said, "No way, Jose, we're not bailing you out. We can do half a billion. We'll do $500 million. These are the repayment terms." And they kind of went back and forth with different figures for the total loan and what the repayment terms would be until eventually, now, here we are. They say, "Dude, we can't make dollars or cents out of this. We give up. We'll shut the lights off forever." And so, yes, and gas prices, yes and no. Because the reality is, on one side of this coin, people will say Spirit was the first corporate casualty, the first American corporate casualty of the war. On the other hand, Spirit was already a struggling company that tried to merge with JetBlue years ago. And after that merger was blocked, then they had to increase fares. They had to cut routes. They had to lay people off, and this was just a slow motion death over the last couple years. But the reality is a struggling economy leaves businesses vulnerable. It is as simple as that. You can't run away from that. As a right winger, you can try and say, oh, it was Elizabeth Warren, it was all these other things. But the truth does lie somewhere in the middle. Yes, Spirit would have eventually probably gone bust. Or, if the economy had just kept improving, then maybe their repayment plan, maybe they would have pulled out of bankruptcy. Maybe everything would have been fine. If everything had gone perfectly, it would have been fine. Imagine that. But things didn't go perfectly. Instead, the economy is kind of struggling right now. And now we have this war going on. A war of choice is what they're calling it. A war of choice. This war will continue until Europe's out of gas, by the way. 3 weeks ago, the IEA 3 weeks ago, the IEA said that Europe had 6 weeks of gas left. We have a minimum 3 more weeks until we have all of Europe's imports coming from the U.S. or Venezuela. Then this war will continue. Our prices are up. America has the reserves. We have enough gas in our reserves. And I don't mean the strategic reserves of oil already barreled. I mean in our shale deposits. All over the country, we have all of this oil, all this LP, all this gas. We have all of this ready to go. There's one problem. We cannot extract that oil from the ground for $68 a barrel, which is what we were trading for in January. We couldn't get that oil out of the ground because the oil was so cheap everywhere else. So now what happens? You raise gas prices. So now the price of oil goes up and up and up. Hey, at $90 a barrel, we can start investing and getting some of this oil out of the ground. Hey, who knows? At $110 a barrel, well, now there's a whole bunch of oil we can start getting out of the ground. And once you have the infrastructure there, you can start paying back that infrastructure very quickly. Now it's cheap to get it out of the ground because the infrastructure already exists. That's that whole EBITDA thing. The people like to throw that word around. Yeah, that's right. I think it's down. Left and right is a myth. We are descending directly down, and it keeps getting hotter every day. So you raise the price of this fuel, then you get prospective customers. You renegotiate those peace terms, those tariffs, those agreements, the things like NATO. You can renegotiate all these things on the basis of countries getting their oil from us and not Iran. You can sink Iran's economy, and then that raised oil price, now we're getting all this oil out of the U.S. Boom. Number one oil exporter in the world, baby. 5D chess or whatever. Plan trusted. That's what they want you to believe. And honestly, no, the writing on the wall is we are strangling out Europe. All of this shit about we had to pay their tariffs for so long, and the minute we slap tariffs on them, they do a whole blitz on our entire media and half of our government to say how unfair we're being. I do literally think it's that petty. I believe that it is that petty. That we paid their tariffs for decades, and then the minute we said, hey, reciprocal tariffs, you have to pay what we pay, the indignity, the fact that people in our media were carrying water for them after we pay for their defense so they can have free health care, something people in America have begged for. Yeah, no, I think I think that it might actually literally be that petty. They say, how do you like them apples? Yeah, the Game Theory 18, the video that you sent me, Zombie Tea Party, by the way. That guy shares some good videos. No, so the Game Theory 18 lays it out. He sent me a video that was basically along the same lines. It kind of lays out the whole strategy, the kind of ideal strategy. But at the end of the day, like, do you want a thesis where you really know everything, or do you just want to know what to expect over the next few weeks? Hey, price of a gallon of gas is going up, guys. It's going to keep going up for 3 more weeks. Now, if you adjust for inflation to $20-$26, the highest that gas prices have ever been is $6.50, I think. $6.50 was the highest average. That was in 2008. If you adjust for inflation from 2008, right after we invaded Libya, then that would today be like $6.50 a gallon. So we're not there yet. And they will hold on to this. White knuckle hold on to it. Meanwhile, everybody's distracted by the redistricting fight. So we're not really worried about the war in Iran other than our gas prices keep going up, but we are redistricting across the country. The DOJ announced yesterday they will force redistricting on these red states that are being squishy. If they have a single district that is made citing Section 2 of the Voters' Rights Act, the DOJ will be suing that state for their unconstitutional disenfranchisement of the racial groups that were not given preferential treatment in those Section 2 VRA districts. So they are forcing redistricting. We will see primaries get delayed this year. Now, I would never give financial advice to a person, but I will say I personally did download Kalshi because you can get a sweet, sweet deal, an absolutely stunning deal on voting against a blue wave this year. Now, that's what I did. I would never encourage someone else to do that. I certainly wouldn't give that as financial advice, but you would absolutely best believe that Kalshi, they had just, it was 21 cents on for a yes for a blue wave was 79 cents, no for a blue wave was 21 cents, and I bought like $200 worth of no. It's not happening, dude. In fact, you could even speculate a guess. How many seats will Republicans get? And if you think that they are maximalists, that comes out to 233 to 237 seats for the Republicans. You'd have to be crazy to buy 1 cent for yes on 233 to 237. That is definitely, don't take that financial advice because you're throwing away money. But $5 would get you a lot. Just saying. If you didn't know what to do with $5. Man, I have literally so many other stories that I wanted to cover today. But yeah, exactly. You can make a little bit of money on Kalshi, and then you can afford the $5 gas that we're going to have in 2 to 3 weeks. I wonder, actually, I got to check Kalshi and see if I can do an over-under on gas prices. I'd love to know. I'm going to take the over. I don't care what the number is. I'm taking the over. All right. Well, I got more for you guys tomorrow. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You can find me literally everywhere except for Threads. Threads sucks. I'm on X. I'm on Facebook. You can find the Facebook page, share articles. TikTok for the shorts. Rumble has the shorts. X also has the shorts, incidentally. But all the long form videos are posted to Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. So check it out. Share with your friends. Tell them about the show. They can find it wherever. If you see somebody, you can print out the videos frame by frame and then mail it to them. And they'll get about as much out of it. All right. Thank you, guys. I'm always here for you. Good night.